Eagle Eye had indeed twisted his ankle, but for him, it wasn't a big issue. He had asked Lu Xinrui for help more to divert her attention. Lu Xinrui quickly realized this. Once Eagle Eye sat down, he immediately massaged and rotated his ankle, looking as if nothing had happened. Her smile lightened the previously heavy atmosphere. Lu Xinrui leaned against a tree trunk, hugging her knees as she sat down to wait for the concubine and the others. After a moment of silence, Eagle Eye broke the ice. Sorry, Yanzi asked me to take good care of you, but I was too careless. I thought nothing would happen in the camp. I'm sorry. Lu Xinrui shook her head, indicating it was fine. She wasn't entirely unscathed. The bruises on her body weren't the only marks. The fear in her heart lingered. But in this world, no one was obligated to help anyone. Family members could turn against each other, let alone Eagle Eye, who wasn't her brother or father. He had no reason to help her. He had already shown her considerable care during their work, and for that, she was very grateful. She also understood that she couldn't always rely on others. This incident gave her a tremendous sense of crisis. Yanzi and Eagle Eye couldn't always be by her side. Instead of hoping someone would always rescue her, it was better to learn to protect herself. She didn't need to have exceptional fighting skills like Clown. Being as agile and vigilant as Yanzi or the concubine would be enough to avoid such attacks. Thinking of this, Lu Xinrui spoke up. Eagle Eye. Yes. I heard from the concubine that you used to be the deputy leader of the hunting team. Eagle Eye nodded, waiting for her to continue. If I want to have the ability to protect myself, could you teach me? Eagle Eye was taken aback. Just as he was about to respond, the concubine's voice came from above. She, Shen, and Tiayi had arrived, carrying the baskets Eagle Eye had left behind. Eagle Eye, why did you suddenly drop everything and run off? We had to bring your basket back, the concubine said as she jumped down, finally noticing Lu Xinrui and the unconscious man. What happened? Eagle Eye shook his head, not answering directly. He took his basket and then untied a long, cloth-wrapped bundle from his waist, tossing it to Lu Xinrui. Take this. Lu Xinrui unwrapped the cloth, revealing what was inside. Is this a knife? It was a roughly 40-centimeter long, flat white object shaped like a knife, made of bone, with a sharp edge and a cloth-wrapped handle. Yes, it's a knife, Eagle Eye confirmed. But it's fragile and will break if used too forcefully. Just use it for self-defense. The crude bone knife gave Lu Xinrui a small sense of security. She suddenly recalled the white, elongated object the priest had used to slit his throat. It must have been a similar bone knife, at least just as sharp. Eagle Eye walked over to the still unconscious man and dragged him up. Shen, give me a hand. Let's take this guy back to the leader. The two men hauled the man up. Eagle Eye let out a breath. Let's go back to camp. Lu Xinrui, the concubine, and Tiayi followed behind. Though Eagle Eye hadn't directly answered, his actions made it clear the man had done something wrong and it involved Lu Xinrui. The concubine seemed to guess what had happened and didn't ask further. Upon returning to camp, Lu Xinrui immediately sensed an unusual atmosphere. The camp was more lively and bustling than usual. Even the patrolling guards had faces filled with excitement and joy. The others seemed to understand what was happening. Instead of going to the leader as planned, Eagle Eye took the man directly to the camp center, the communal dining area. Arriving at the square, Lu Xinrui saw a giant beast's carcass in the middle of the clearing, standing over 3 meters high and more than 10 meters long, far beyond any animal she had ever seen. It looked like a cross between a deer, a cow, and a horse, with thick horns and dense fur. About a dozen people were using bone knives to process the edible parts. Besides this giant beast, there were 2 relatively smaller animals. The leader, the merchant, Yanzi, and others were all in the square. The leader was speaking with a man Lu Xinrui had never seen before, a tall and sturdy man over 2 meters tall. She guessed he must be Bear, the hunting team leader. Her suspicions were confirmed as she saw many unfamiliar faces in the camp. Unlike the others, these new arrivals were in much better spirits, wearing clothes made from whole animal hides. Due to the lack of sturdy thread, their clothing was mostly tied together with leather straps. The hunting team had returned. These were the hunting team members she had never met, and the man speaking to the leader was undoubtedly Bear. Eagle Eye's actions confirmed her guess. He dropped his basket, walked over with the man, and threw him on the ground. Then he shared a genuine bear hug with Bear. After exchanging a few words with Bear, Eagle Eye explained the man's actions to the leader and then motioned for Lu Xinrui to come over. Lu Xinrui complied and was pulled over by Yanzi, who carefully examined her bruised wrist. Eagle Eye introduced her. Zirui, this is the last team leader you haven't met. He's Bear, the leader of the hunting team. If you ever need anything, you can go to him. Bear nodded silently. Unlike the others who had treated her with special care, Bear's attitude was more like that of the logistics team leader, the merchant neither cold nor warm. However, Lu Xinrui could clearly sense a difference between them. The merchant saw her and the other women as mere tools for reproduction, completely ignoring their value as members of the camp. To him, it didn't matter whether the women could do any work as long as they could bear children. Bear, on the other hand, treated her the same as the other camp members, a vulnerable person needing protection. To him, there was no difference between a young girl and a woman if they both needed protection. He wouldn't give her special treatment due to her age but also wouldn't underestimate her abilities because of it. Lu Xinrui disliked the merchant's view of women, but she didn't mind Bear's equal treatment. She didn't want to be favored simply because she was younger and did less work. She wanted to be seen as an equal member of the camp, not as a little sister needing constant care. She had never voiced these thoughts. Everyone had already taken such good care of her. If she complained, it would seem ungrateful. Perhaps because of this goodwill towards Bear, Lu Xinrui took the initiative to greet him. Hello, I'm Zirui. Please take care of me. Compared to her, Bear's introduction was brief. I'm Bear. The leader, aware of Bear's taciturn nature, quickly took over. Zirui, about this guy. He kicked the man on the ground. I'll make sure you get justice. Lu Xinrui looked at the man, now covered in dirt from being dragged around by Eagle Eye, still unconscious. Clown's kick had clearly been heavy. All right, Yanzi, careful of her wrist, held her hand. Zirui and I will be waiting for your decision. The leader smiled helplessly. He knew she wasn't truly angry but needed to vent her frustration at him as a fellow man. After saying their goodbyes and giving Eagle Eye several scornful glances, Yanzi took Lu Xinrui to see the doctor. For minor injuries like this, the former surgical intern had plenty of methods. Using cold stream water as an ice pack, he performed a cold compress. However, further treatment had to wait until the capillaries under the skin healed by the next day. For the rest of the afternoon, Yanzi and Lu Xinrui helped the logistics team prepare for the evening celebration. Because the dining area was still wet, the celebration was held on the southeastern riverbank instead. Compared to the usual communal meals, this felt more like a picnic. The logistics team set up temporary stoves, while others brought out the previously stored dry firewood and built a large bonfire on the riverbank. Though they often had meat for meals, it was usually dried and cured, stored for a long time but not very tasty. With the hunting team's return, they could finally have fresh meat. Seeing the honey-coated meat prepared for roasting, Lu Xinrui's earlier, unpleasant encounter seemed to vanish completely. In the past, she might have scoffed at such things, but after days of eating dry, gamey meat and meat soup, honey-roasted meat seemed like a delicacy. As she anticipated the feast, the sky gradually darkened, and the bonfire was lit. Almost everyone in the camp gathered together. The celebration was much livelier than usual meals. Yanzi brought 2 servings of honey-roasted meat, freshly caught grilled fish, wild vegetable and mushroom soup, and they sat together to enjoy the rare feast. There was also alcohol, home brewed by the logistics team from wild fruits. Without suitable yeast, it didn't taste great and wasn't very strong. Lu Xinrui and Yanzi didn't drink, leaving it mostly for the men. The celebration's main focus was, of course, the hunting team and Bear. They sat in the most prominent spot, basking in the admiration and honor they had earned through their dangerous work. After several rounds of drinks and dishes, the leader stood up, clapping his hands to get everyone's attention. The hunting team has returned, and we're lucky to have lost no brothers this time. Today should be a happy day, but some people have ignored my previous warnings and attempted to assault a woman. As he spoke, 2 people brought forward the man who had attacked Lu Xinrui. By now, he was fully awake, bound with tree vine ropes. He struggled in vain, a mix of defiance and fear in his eyes. I'm not a just judge, and there's no law here. I won't do anything to you. But if you think you can escape punishment for such actions, You're mistaken. The leader crouched down, slapping the man's face and sternly saying, I don't have that right, but someone else does. He stood up, looking at Lu Xinrui. Rui, come forward. Lu Xinrui was extremely nervous. She felt everyone's eyes on her. Never before had she been the center of attention like this. But once the initial panic passed, it seemed the surrounding environment could no longer affect her. She pressed her lips together, stood up, and walked to the leader's side, where the bonfire dispelled the evening chill. She looked at the man pinned to the ground. He attacked you. I'm giving you the power to decide his fate. You can do whatever you want with him.